Good Saturday morning, everyone. Chris McDonald, Great Smoky Mountain Journal on this Saturday, February the 17th, 2018. We want to apologize for last night's broadcast. We had some severe technical difficulties and got 3 minutes into the program and the audio went out. So we're hoping for better results today, but you'll get to hear it all over again today. This is going to be a redo part two. But we've got a lot to talk about today on this weekly commentary, special Mac Files broadcast for the Great Smoky Mountain Journal. Um, we were doing these daily back in the fall and summer of 2016, right prior to the election. And we hope to get back to doing these more regularly, at least a weekly broadcast, and to come to you and give you our thoughts on some things and so forth. Our paper is beginning to really take off. It's taken more and more of our time, and between the duties of keeping the headlines updated and so forth, we have not had the time to do these every day, but we definitely will come on and do them when we have special events and things that we will feel like deserve some thought and commentary on. This week, we're going to start back again, hopefully doing this is going to be the first of our weekly commentary, and we appreciate you joining us today on this Saturday. We've had a great week here at the paper, to be honest with you, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. We had Juanita Broderick on 2 days ago on Thursday, did a great interview with her. Juanita has got a book out. You better put some ice on that. How I survived being raped by Bill Clinton. We're going to talk about that in this podcast today, talk about our interview with her a little bit. We also had Ann Vandersteel yesterday from Your Voice America. Ann is a dear friend and just a sweet lady, beautiful family. And she actually lives in South Florida with Bill Mitchell and the other gang from Your Voice America. They were very close to the shootings, and we encourage you to listen to that interview yesterday. It's some good stuff, and and I'll say this right now, and I'm not sure she's listening to this broadcast, but I compliment Ann on one thing. She probably in about 10 minutes defined the immigration issue better than I think I've heard anybody ever define what's going on with DACA, define what's going on with the debate in Washington about what bills the Senate needs to pass, what President Trump's positions on it. And I think if there's any criticism of the president, and it's not really a criticism, it's a suggestion, I guess, more than criticism. The messaging has got to be more streamlined about what's going on and what he's doing with this, because the country right now is so fragmented that one, two, three groups are so angry about certain things and their little things, even on the right. And he's going to need every single vote he gets come these midterms to keep the House and the Senate, and again in 2020. And I believe he will get reelected. I just don't think the Democrats have a message, and I don't think that they've got any plan for America. And we're going to talk about the Russian collusion today and several things. But let's get right to it this morning. I want to start today with some sad news, and I want to deal with the situation. And let me just say this today again. Our prayers are with the community down in Parkland, Florida, Marjorie Douglas Selman High School, and we're showing you the victims here. 17 of them, unfortunately, 3 teachers, 14 students. I think one of the saddest things that I've heard over the last couple of days is that the average age of these victims has been around 14 years old, not including the teachers. This madman, who we're going to show you a picture of briefly, and I even hate to put his picture up there, but we have to because of something we're going to talk about. But he actually targeted the freshman building at the high school, and when he did most of his shooting, most of the victims were either freshmen or sophomores, but mainly freshmen, and that would be why that most of these kids are around 13, 14 years old. And I look at this, and you can Google their names, and every one of them is precious today in our hearts, and their families are precious. President Trump, First Lady Melania was down in Florida this morning and yesterday in the evening visiting the victims at the hospital. Again, that just shows a lot of class by our president. He's always shown class. I think back to Obama. I think back to the shootings that we've had in the country under Obama, and he was very slow to visit the victims. And sometimes he never visited the victims. When the police officers were shot in Dallas, he never raised a finger to show any kind of respect to law enforcement and to anything of that nature. And it's sad But we truly have a different president now, and we salute President Trump and First Lady Melania for their compassion today to going down there. I want to mention Aaron Fleece. He's the gentleman, the fourth from the left on the top of this picture. He was a high school coach there at Parkland. I was listening to Fox this morning early. They were interviewing two of his players, and he is a true hero. He was he's an ex-military guy. He died in this shooting. But one thing that has come out about Aaron is that he actually, when the bullets started firing, this kid started shooting, he ran to the shooter trying to shield the students behind him of the shots. And of course, unfortunately, he took some fatal shots himself and lost his life along with these other 14 kids. There were two other teachers in that picture there that lost their lives as well. And things are coming out today, and have come out over the last few days, that it seems that the FBI has been very derelict in their duties. And I don't want to get into all the gory details about what happened. You know the story. This kid walked into the high school in an Uber car, had a duffel bag with the AR-15 in it, and then he walked into the school, started shooting. He pulled. It was premeditated. He pulled the fire alarm on the wall, and the kids, as they were beginning to run out, he started shooting them in random. And then, in even a more callous act of premeditation, he walked up to the second floor. I understand he was going to the third floor of the high school. We still are not clear why that was his destination. But in walking up to the second floor of the high school, that was where the teacher's lounge was, and there was an open window. And as these children were running out of the high school, it's been reported that he literally was shooting through the glass, trying to kill even more that were fleeing from the high school. But the only thing that saved them was basically an act of God, and that the mirror, or the window, I should say, was bulletproof, and it never did penetrate the glass. And it was at that point that he dropped the gun, ran down the steps, trying to flee the scene. But as he walked out, he sort of tried to intermingle with the kids. And then, as in mind-boggling thing, spent time at two different fast food restaurants after the attacks before police finally caught him at McDonald's. And the kids identified him pretty quickly. And that's what our talking points are about today. And this is what we want to talk about. And 17 are dead, nearly 50 injured. And I'm going to bring these victims' pictures back up in a minute. But I do want to show you the picture of this scumbag who deserves the death penalty, in my opinion. And, capital murder, folks, of this nature and this premeditation, this kid is an adult. And even if he was a teen, he deserves a death penalty. And, all these wheezy snowflakes out here that says, no, we can't kill people like that. Well, let me tell you something. When you take human life like this blank did, you deserve to have your own life taken. And at this point, the only thing that I'm praying for right now is his soul. He deserves to pay the ultimate price for what he did. There are 17 families today that have lost loved ones, children, husbands, brothers, sisters, and it's grandchildren. Some of these kids' grandparents are still living, I'm sure. It's very tragic, very sad. And I look at this situation in Florida, and any of those children could have been our kids. It could have been my son. It could have been your son, your daughter. And it was terrible. But the story that is developing is the lack of, I don't know what you call it, due diligence, or just being incompetent, or whatever. And I want to pull this up. We ran this story yesterday. This is actually our headline off the Great Smoky Mountain Journal. Governor Rick Scott of Florida actually called yesterday for Christopher Wray, the FBI director, to resign, because reports surfaced yesterday that as late as January, the FBI got a tip that this young man was plotting something to attack a school. In addition to that, the Broward County Sheriff's Department has had 36 interactions with Nicholas Cruz, since 2010. Between 2010 and 2016, it was reported yesterday and this morning again that they had 36 run-ins with him, and yet despite being told in September of 2017, the FBI again got a tip even then from a blogger out in Mississippi who had posted something about guns, and this psychopath had stuck a comment under his video and said, "I'm planning to be a professional school shooter." Well, he was smart, called the FBI in September of 2017. The FBI visited Ben tonight, and then they basically blew the tip off. I don't think they ever actually visited Cruz. So there's been two accounts where the FBI has fallen in their duties and did nothing to stop this horrific attack. And I guess what infuriates us, and me and Ann talked about this yesterday on our program, and I think what infuriates most people today, it infuriates me, is that the Blanking Bureau of Idiots, Blanking Bumbling Idiots, that's my new nickname for them, the FBI, and you can fill in the blank. But they spent all this year and most of 2016 spying and trying to take down a president and Donald Trump and doing illegal stuff with FISA warrants and getting, basing their cases on fake dossiers and running around like the Keystone Cops, and all the time their former director tweeting out that they're a great institution of integrity, and that all this criticism of the FBI is just people that we're just a bunch of scumbags and racists for questioning the fact that they may have been crooked and corrupt, from Eric Holder down to the janitor in the Obama administration. And it's pathetic that they had all that time to do that, but they didn't have time to trace down a legitimate threat, a domestic terrorist threat. Folks, this was domestic terrorism that hit this country Wednesday. I mean, this was terrorism. When you have a man, an adult, go into a school with an AR-15 shooting kids, that's terrorism. And the FBI, at the very least, could have picked the phone up to Broward County and said, "Hey, you got a threat in your county. You got a guy by the name of Nicholas Cruz." There was only 9. They say that there's only 9 Nicholas Cruzes that you can find in the United States that spell his name the way he spells his name. It would have been easy. It would have taken an hour to track him down, or less. But they did nothing. And 17 people are dead. And I have to tell you, I've not been a fan of Christopher Wray to begin with. I thought he was part of the swamp when President Trump appointed him after James Comey got fired. And I've always felt like that, before the FBI can ever move on from its dereliction of duties and this dossier and all these salacious things that have been coming out about their agents, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, Andrew Wiseman, Andy McCabe, all of this bunch that are as crooked as night as day. And it's just, it's pathetic to listen to this and then to watch this go down and realize that in January, they had a chance to stop this guy. They could have showed up at his house, did a search of his premises, and when they found the gun, said, "You're under arrest for firearms." I mean, even if he'd have been legal, they just said, "Hey, based upon the threats and based upon this," they could have brought him in for questioning. There's something called reasonable suspicion under the law that you could have, and they had reasonable suspicion to go get him and talk to him at least and bring him in and hold him. And I think what would have happened is that he would have known then that he was under surveillance, and maybe that would have stopped him. But 17 people are dead, and it's par for the course. I want to mention one other thing about this Florida shooting today. And unfortunately, on the broadcast last night, that got deleted because of technical problems. We talked about this, but it's very important. We're going to be interviewing Jimmy Meeks again sometime this week, we hope. Jimmy is part of Sheepdog Ministries, and he's a good guy. Jimmy's a little rough under the edges, but he's got a message that we need to listen to. And Jimmy, what he does, he was out near Sutherland, Texas back in the fall when this tragic shooting took place last year at the church. And long before that happened, Jimmy has been going around to churches, encouraging pastors, encouraging facilities that you need to have armed security at your place of worship. And he's been met with a lot of resistance. A lot of pastors have laughed him off, mocked him. He said he was in one church that got to speaking, and 10 minutes into his speech, the pastor at the church got up, interrupted him, and said, "We really don't want to hear all that," and threw him out. I mean, this is how crazy this country has gotten. And all Jimmy's trying to tell the churches is that this is a real threat. You need to have somebody monitoring your parking lot, monitoring your doors, making sure that nobody comes into your worship that wants to do you harm. And that's one of the things that when we talked to Jimmy back in September that I took away from our interview. He said that all crime, nobody that goes into a building to shoot it up or to do whatever harm that they want to do, they can't get into the building except they come through the parking lot. And he that's his suggestion that we put armed security people, former FBI, former police, FBI, former law enforcement, former firemen, former military people that are trained in weaponry and they know how to handle situations like this. Monitor the parking lot. Put somebody outside to make sure that when people are coming into the parking lot that you know who's going to be there and they have to come through you to get inside. I'm not Monday morning quarterbacking the high school in Parkland whatsoever what I'm about to say because the hurt and the tragedy speaks for itself. I will say this, and this is just a thought, and this is for future situations, and this is for future high school administrators that are listening to me today. And this is the thing. But what would have happened on Wednesday had there been somebody when that Uber car drove up to the parking lot at Parkland High School? What would have happened had you had a monitor outside and that monitor confronted Nicholas Cruz before he went inside with that duffel bag? Because a person in that parking lot would have noticed the guy's coming in, an Uber driver in the middle of the day with a duffel bag. There's a pretty good chance, a 99.999% chance, he was not coming there to have lunch with his brother. And, you know, that confrontation, yeah, could have got violent, but at least it would have gotten violent outside. And more than likely, Cruz would never have made it in that school. And again, that is not any kind of criticism of the school because, folks, it's par for the course. It's done. And again, our hearts just break for these kids today. But I'm just saying this to say we need to look at our school security and we need to beef up our security across this country at every single facility. Look, we're spending money on everything God knows under the sun. We need to invest in our country and in the safety of our kids. And I'm going to talk about that more even in a minute. But I do believe that Ray needs to go. I've always never been a fan of his anyway. At the very least, he's going to have a lot of explaining to do. Pam Bondi said that last night, the Florida Attorney General. Even Jeff Sessions today. I like to fell out of my chair that Jeff said something provocative. But even he said the FBI has dropped the ball on this. So, you know, it's going to be an interesting investigation, and I think heads need to roll, like they need to roll about some other things too. But anyway, again, before we go any further, I want to just, I'm going to take this picture down and this psychopath down. That was his Instagram posting. And folks, again, with everything that the FBI knew about this guy and everything Broward County knew about this guy, when you're seeing something like this is a red flag to law enforcement. You need to go confront this maniac and do something, take him off the street, and look, at the very least, he's under reasonable suspicion, keep a car on him and surveillance. Have him under surveillance and make sure that he's not doing something crazy. But nothing was done, and 17 people are dead. And I hate to keep saying that, but it's a very, very, very tragic day in our country. And again, I want to put this picture up of these victims because this, to me, is the story. It's not about anything else other than this right here. We've got 17 precious souls that have been lost because of a tragic shooting, and very, very sad. The other story that broke yesterday, and it actually broke about an hour after me and Ann finished our interview, and I hate that because we could have had a lot to talk about even about this, but this is Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, and he was the point man for the announcement yesterday of 17 or 13 indictments of Russians convicted of meddling in our elections. And I'm going to play you this short little clip, and I want to talk about this because there's several things that he says in there that we need to discuss. Listen to what Rod Rosenstein had to say yesterday about this indictment. Very telling and very interesting as it relates to President Trump.
Now, there is no allegation in this indictment that any American was a knowing participant in this illegal activity.
All right, I'm going to stop him right there. There is no indication that any American was a knowing participant in this meddling. Number one, the last time I checked, President Donald Trump is an American. Eric Jr. or Donald Jr. is an American. Eric Trump is an American. Michael Flynn is an American. Paul Manafort is an American. Who else? Steve Bannon, who they seem to think was involved in this. He's an American. And a number of people that are being considered suspects by the left and the media, the drumbeat of the left over this last year and a half, that President Trump colluded with the Russians, was cleared yesterday. All of them were cleared in that statement that Rod Rosenstein just made. He just cleared the Trump administration of collusion. I heard Geraldo this morning on Fox, and he made a statement. He said, when the collusionistas, as he put it, find Jesus and get sober, maybe they'll apologize to the president. I wouldn't hold my breath on that. They're not. They're going to spin this. You mark my word. It will be spun this weekend on Joy Reid and MSNBC and Joe and Micah and CNN, Jake Twitt. Don Loser Lemon. I can just go ahead and name him. Wolf, Scumbag Blitzer. I hate to use the terms, but folks, I'm just fed up. I'm fed up with the media. I'm fed up with this talk. We've been so distracted by a farce, a travesty, a ruse for a year and a half now, and it's been nothing but destroy the country. It's done nothing but destroy the country. And it has been the biggest joke in the world. But when those words came out of Rod Rosenstein's mouth yesterday, he basically said no American was knowingly participating in this meddling. And I've got a few comments about even the whole indictment, but let's listen further. It's about a minute long. Listen to what he had to say. But I wanted to stop him because that's key to what he had to say yesterday in this.
Now, there is no allegation in this indictment that any American was a knowing participant in this illegal activity. There is no allegation in this indictment that any American was a knowing participant in this illegal activity. There is no allegation in the indictment that the charged conduct altered the outcome of the 2016 election. I want to caution you that everyone charged with a crime is presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty in court. At trial, prosecutors must introduce credible evidence that is sufficient to prove each defendant guilty beyond any reasonable doubt to a unanimous jury. The special counsel's investigation is ongoing. There will be no comments from the special counsel at this time. This indictment serves as a reminder that people are not always who they appear to be on the internet. The indictment alleges that the Russian conspirators want to promote discord in the United States and undermine public confidence in democracy. We must not allow them to succeed. The Department of Justice will continue to work cooperatively with other law enforcement and intelligence agencies and with the Congress to defend our nation against similar current and future efforts.
And that is that. And I want to just say a few things. Let me show you a picture, folks, of the real Russian collusion that went on in the 2016 election. This group right here, these are who really colluded with the Russians and obstructed justice during the 2016 election. And I'm going to say this about this indictment, and the media has been absolutely quiet about this, but I'm going to bring it up, and I'm going to ask you a question. These indictments go back to 2014. All right? Now, President Obama was in office then. If this was going on in 2014 and 2015, and the election wasn't until November of 2016, then a majority of this meddling in our elections was done under his watch, not during the election of Trump, not during the President Trump administration, but it was done under the tenure and the oversight of Obama, Comey, Rice, Clinton, and Lynch. So my question, and the million-dollar question that probably will never be asked by anybody, is where was President Obama during all of this time, and why wasn't he doing something to stop it? I'll tell you the answer to that. I'll tell you the answer to that. They've believed in all of their hearts that the lady, the first from the left over here, was going to win this election going away. They thought they had rigged this election and stacked the deck so much against Trump. Because when you look at this in light of everything else that has come out over the last few months, the text, the FBI corruption, the collusion, the Uranium One scandal, all of this stuff, the corruption, the Clinton cronies that paid for this dossier, the DNC, all of it, folks, it's like a puzzle that is being put together in pieces. They knew Hillary, they thought so at least, was going to win this. And this was always going to be shoved under the rug. And I guarantee you, had she been elected president, this indictment that came down yesterday would have never taken place. Because the Russians, granted, they were doing some meddling in the sense they were tweeting out stuff. These were Twitter accounts that they're calling into play, which last time I heard, America's a free country, you can tweet what you want to tweet. I mean, the indictments themselves are weak on the surface, to me. And we may get a legal expert in here to talk to us next week about these indictments, because it would be interesting to see what they got to say. But what's eating at me this morning is Obama. This was going on during his time, and nothing was being done about it. And the media and the government and nobody else is going to even utter a peep about that. But something needs to be looked into as to what Obama knew and why he didn't do anything to stop it. This is your real Russian collusion. And I say this to the MSNBC crap network. You are a disgrace to journalism. Every one of your anchors deserve to be fired. You all need to issue a corporate apology to President Trump. Every one of your anchors need to issue a personal apology to President Trump. CNN, the Clinton News Network, the Crap News Network, and all other memes that are out there, you need to issue an apology to President Trump, because you have been screaming this stupid lie for a year and a half. And your lie got busted up yesterday. And I really believe that what Rod Rosenstein did yesterday cleared President Trump. And I just want to show you a couple. This is our editorial, or not editorial, one of our political cartoons that we had on the paper this morning. And it says the Republicans says, "What is that?" And Donald Trump says, "It used to be a dead horse." And you can see the press with the club there. And that's about the truth of it right there. The press has been beating this drum for a year and a half. And then this is the dossier. Folks, the whole reason we've got this Mueller investigation is this right here. And it's not Trump that was behind it. It was Hillary and the Democrats. And again, this is your real Russia collusion. And it's a tragedy that nothing's going to be done to stop it. All right. I've got about 5 minutes. I'm going to bring this to a close, but I want to bring you to another screen because I want to talk about something really quick, and I'm going to do this as quickly as I can. This is a title of a book by Michael Savage, Liberalism is a Mental Disorder. And I just found it hilarious this week, not in a good way, but in a bad way. And this is what, if you don't know what happened, this is what Kamala Harris said this morning, yesterday, in her comments regarding the Florida shooting. She's represented from Florida, and she said, quote, "We can't have any pride when our babies are being slaughtered." Well, when I first heard that quote, I thought Kamala Harris had found Jesus and had given back her donation to Planned Parenthood, because this report come out, and I just deleted it. Hang on just a second. Let me get this image back. I'm sorry, folks. We're live here today, but this report came out, I think, in 2016. Yeah, right before the election. Planned Parenthood donated $81,000 to Kamala Harris, and Planned Parenthood is the group that promotes the slaughtering of babies. So when I heard Kamala Harris say this, and I didn't know what context she was saying it in, I thought Kamala Harris had given $81,000 back to Planned Parenthood because she had found God and found Jesus. And I'm not trying to make light of that because it's sad. But this is the liberalism, this is the disorder that liberalism has. She wasn't talking about Planned Parenthood. And speaking of Planned Parenthood, folks, when you go to their website, I want you to look at the, this is the ad, and I just had it up. Let me get it back. I'm sorry about that. This is the ad that you see when you go to their website, which I did this morning, and this is what it tells women or young ladies that comes to their website. There are two ways of ending a pregnancy: in-clinic abortion and the abortion pill. Both are safe and very common. If you're pregnant and thinking about abortion, you have lots of questions. Hey, baby, we're here to help. We're here to help. I'm not making fun of this. 60 million babies have been slaughtered in abortion clinics. And yet Kamala Harris is screaming about gun control and taking $81,000 from people that murder and sell them on the open market for profit. And that's why the audacity of this idiot this week, when she was mocking the faith of a good man, our Vice President, Mike Pence, and she said that speaking to Jesus and Jesus talking to you is a sign of mental illness. I'll ask you a question today. What's more mentally deranged? Killing babies and taking their arms and their legs and their feet and their eyes and their nose and all parts of them and selling it on the open market for profit, like Planned Parenthood does, and does it without blushing. And Kamala Harris has the gall, who takes $81,000, nearly $100,000 of donations of that group's money, and then lectures us about we can't have pride in our country until our babies stop being slaughtered. Camilla, you're absolutely right. We can't have pride, but our babies are being slaughtered in your clinics that's paying you money to run your trap, and you would be better off to be quiet. And so would you, Joy Behar. That's mental illness. When you kill babies and sell them on the open market. That's mental illness. When we let people in this country illegally and we shun our citizens and call our citizens racist and bigots and God knows what else, and then we call people that are here illegal dreamers. Michael Savage had it right. Liberalism is a mental disorder. But I repeat, Kamala Harris, until you return that nearly $100,000 to Planned Parenthood, shut up. Shut up. You've got no right, no moral ground to dictate and to say anything to the American public about gun control and the slaughtering of babies until you stop supporting those that do. And that's the hypocrisy and the disorder and the mental illness of the left. I would much rather have a vice president talking to Jesus and listening to Jesus than somebody like Joy Behar and Kamala Harris and all these leftists and Pelosi and all of them down the line listening and embracing Planned Parenthood and organizations like them. And that, my friend, is why liberalism is a mental disorder. And it is not only a disorder, but it is what's destroying this country. And I am going to put my quote back up. There we go. And that's how I end the Mac Files broadcast today. And I want to come back to my screen here before we leave today. And yeah, I got a little angry because it peed me off when I heard that comment coming out of her mouth today. I wish we'd had the video. I couldn't find the video on YouTube. I guess they hadn't posted it yet. It must have been last night when she said it. And, you know, and MSNBC was doing this, and very, very, very disgusting. And I want to say this about Joy Behar. We're going to be having a faith chat with Ronnie Mitchum. It'll be on our paper tomorrow. We encourage you to listen to that. Ronnie and I talk about the faith issue in Joy Behar, and we do encourage you to listen to that because we get more into that in a minute. But I want to come back to my screen here and say this morning that I am very, very, very saddened today, folks, about these victims in Florida. And we send our prayers and our condolences to these families. And, you know, folks, we need spiritual renewal in this country. We need a spiritual renewal, and we need to get our schools safe. We need to make them safe. That's what we need to be doing. we can't take the guns away and expect this to not happen. It's going to keep happening, folks. If the kid didn't use a gun, he'd have used a bomb. If he would take the bomb away, he'd use a knife. If the kids would have been walking out of school and he didn't have a bomb, knife, or gun, he would have used a truck. It's not about the weapon. It's about the heart, and it's about the person. And our prayers today go with the community of Parkland. And again, we encourage you to listen to our interview with Ann. I do want to mention one quick thing, if you'll give me just 3 more minutes, and I want to just send a shout out to Miss Juanita Broderick. This is our image that we did for our YouTube video that's on YouTube right now. It's been up there since Thursday. We interviewed Juanita Thursday morning, and she was just a precious soul. Very sweet lady and very, very down to earth. Really never talked to her ever in my life. I'd seen her in interviews, and she's very, very gracious to come on the Great Smoky Mountain Journal and discuss her new book. You Better Put Some Ice on It, How I Survived Being Raped by Bill Clinton. Is on Amazon and other outlets. You can go to her website, JuanitaBroderick.com. When you go to the website, or you go to the YouTube video, you'll find her website there. And there were some interesting things that she said about the events of the last 40 years. April of this year will be 40 years since that rape took place. It took place in April of 1978. And one of the things that she said in that interview I want to mention here, because I didn't really follow up with it, and it hit me after I had stopped interviewing her. And I'll just say this about the interview. I didn't want the interview to be about Bill Clinton. I wanted this interview to be about Juanita Broderick. I wanted her to share her heart with you and tell you what happened to her and give encouragement and hope to those that have been victims of sexual assault and rape. And it wasn't the forum to get into a Clinton bashing expose. One of the things, though, that she said that has stuck with me, and during the interview, you'll listen to it, that right after the rape, Bill Clinton told her that he was sterile. And I've had many friends listen to the interview, and they've asked me the question over and over, how then is Chelsea Clinton his daughter? And I'm going to leave that to you to ponder. And I'm going to let that question sink in because it's been bugging me as well. And maybe we'll deal with that in a future broadcast. But there's been rumors through the years that Webb Hubbell is her daddy, so we don't know. But I didn't want to get into the weeds with Juanita about that. That was not the purpose of this interview. This interview was to be a interview about her and her travail and her hurt and her pain and the travels that she's walked and the road she's walked for 40 years carrying this with her. And it's an encouraging interview, and I encourage you to listen to it, again, at a Great Smoky Mountain Journal News Network. This has been Chris McDonald on this Saturday, February the 17th. Again, we hope you've enjoyed this podcast, the Mac Files, and that's our thoughts about things that have happened this week. We'll be keeping you posted on things. We'll have a few written editorials along the way. I just want to, again, send a shout out to my friend Carol Bolton, my ninth grade art teacher, who was shaping me as a young man all the way back then to get photography, and didn't ever realize the input she was having in me then. But she's actually, me and her have connected over the last few years and stayed in touch, and she's our chief editorial grammar checker, I guess is what you call it. She is my voice that speaks into my ear about things I need to write about, and also checks our stuff. And we appreciate her help, and we appreciate all the people that are out there that have made our Great Smoky Mountain Journal possible. And we're looking for sponsors. Right now, we need sponsors, folks. This is a labor of love, but we need your help. We really do. And if you believe in what we're doing, please contact us about advertising with us. Please contact us about maybe putting a sponsorship together, because the more that we can get sponsors, the more time we can devote to doing this and bringing you these kind of interviews that we did with Juanita Thursday. We got some great people coming up. Next week, actually, former Knox County Sheriff Tim Hutchinson is going to be talking to us. From a law enforcement perspective, we're going to be talking with Matt Hinken, local weatherman, about severe weather week. Eric McCord from the National Weather Service, he's a storm chaser, and Andrew Chiramucci, and I probably murdered your name, Andrew, but we're going to be talking to him as well about tornadoes and the spring season that's coming up. So a lot of good stuff, and again, we're nearing the end of this broadcast today. We got about 30 seconds. We appreciate you joining us today at the Great Smoky Mountain Journal. www.smokymountainjournal.com, smokymountainjournal.online. And again, we encourage you to visit our website, chime in on our Facebook page at the Great Smoky Mountain Journal, and our YouTube network channel, Great Smoky Mountain Journal. Have a good weekend, everybody. God bless and Godspeed. prayers for the people down in Parkland, Florida continue today as funerals are beginning to be held today, and our prayers for this nation. May God bless this great nation of America. Have a good day, everybody.